on the Hawkeye Sports Network from Learfield. This is the Fight for Iowa podcast, brought to you by Athletico Physical Therapy, proud partner of the Iowa Hawkeyes and the Big Ten Conference. Hy-Vee, where there's a helpful smile in every aisle. Iowa's corn farmers of the Iowa Corn Growers Association and Iowa Corn Promotion Board. You may think Iowa grows corn, but the truth is, corn grows Iowa. Shields, we're right there with you in Des Moines, Sioux City, Iowa City, and Cedar Falls. University of Iowa Healthcare, changing medicine, changing lives. This is the Fight for Iowa podcast. Here's the voice of the Hawkeyes, Gary Dolphin.
Saturday's Iowa Hawkeye football season opener brings a lot of anticipation, especially for the new look offense. Quarterback, receiver, tight end, offensive line all have new faces, eager to complement the defense and special teams. Kirk Ferentz enters his silver anniversary year as head coach. No one knows for sure what exactly the weather will be or the final score. What is certain will be a wave to the sick kids across the street at Stead Family Children's Hospital at the end of the first quarter, and a turbulent group among the sold-out Kinnick Stadium crowd. After all, they're former Hawkeyes, members of the Iowa Football Legacy Club, a fraternal organization of players, coaches, managers, trainers, and support staff who reconnect and network with all ages and backgrounds. You've seen their packed tailgaters. Perhaps your youngsters have participated in one of the club's many summer camps. The Legacy Club supports various charities across Iowa and assists members suffering a personal or medical crisis. From consensus All-Americans, all Big Ten selections, and walk-ons, their names we remember and to this day appreciate their efforts. We'll meet two of them on this week's Fight for Iowa podcast after a word from sponsors Shields, Athletico, UIHC, and Iowa Corn.
More of the Fight for Iowa podcast after this.
When it comes to your health, you need the full picture. That means the right diagnosis and the right treatment right from the start. I'm Aaron Bose, pediatric neurologist with University of Iowa Healthcare. Here, we're working together every day to advance medicine so you can get the best care. With more research, more clinical trials, and more treatment options than anywhere else in the state, the University of Iowa Healthcare is changing medicine and changing lives. Learn more at uihc.org.
Get in the game with Hawk Talk. Join Coach Kirk Ferentz and host Gary Dolphin for 90 minutes of Iowa football talk. Wednesdays, 6:30 to 8 Central. Listen live on the Hawkeye Radio Network and Iowa Hawkeyes YouTube channel. Presented by View Rooftop.
Kids eat free in September at Wahlburgers at Hy-Vee to celebrate National Family Meals Month. That's right, get a free kids meal with the purchase of an adult entree. Kids 12 and under can choose from favorites like a burger and fries, grilled cheese, chicken tenders, and more. Bring the family together. Dine in at Wahlburgers at Hy-Vee and get a free kids meal with the purchase of an adult entree every day in September.
Dine in only. Some restrictions apply. See store for details.
Now back to the Fight for Iowa podcast. Here's the voice of the Hawkeyes, Gary Dolphin.
They're at Kinnick Stadium every Iowa home football game and on many road trips. The Hawkeye Football Legacy Club. The brotherhood unites players from 7 decades. Jeff Nelson was a defensive tackle on that unit that featured stars like Leroy Smith, John Derby, Merton Hanks, and Brett Bielema. His position coach was Dan McCarney. The Hawkeyes won the 1990 Big Ten title, was ranked as high as 6th, and lost to Washington in the Rose Bowl. Jeff's 2 sons played at Iowa, including Anthony Nelson, an all-Big Ten defensive lineman now with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then 60 years ago, Fred Riddle was a starting quarterback on a team coached by Jerry Burns, featuring Iowa greats and future NFL stars Paul Krause, Wally Hilgenberg, and Mike Riley. Riddle threw a then Big Ten record 5 touchdown passes in a game against Indiana. Riddle, an outstanding athlete at Madison High School in Collinsville, Illinois, eventually gave up football and played in 40 basketball games in the Fieldhouse with the likes of Don Nelson, Jimmy Rogers, Dave Roach, and Joe Reddington. Riddle played for Sharm Sherman, but was on the ground floor when Iowa hired future Hall of Fame coach Ralph Miller.
And it really started when Ralph Miller came our senior year. My junior year, Shorm decided he wanted to retire and couldn't put up with us anymore. So Ralph came in, and I can remember him telling people, you better buy your tickets now because there aren't going to be tickets once the season gets going. And everybody laughed at him. Well, I can also remember after the second game he comes into practice, he said, you know what, people are coming to me for tickets. I told you to get the damn tickets before the season started. I don't have any tickets, and I don't want anything to do with them.
It's easy to see why Ralph sold the field house out better than 13,000. You played quarterback at Iowa and played on the basketball team. What were and you're a doctor, so there had to be some academic balancing act to go with the two sports.
The balancing act was we would start football practice before school started, and a week before finals at the end of the year, we would finish up with spring ball. So I learned how to survive on about 4.5 hours of sleep a night, and also learned that probably affected the way I played a little bit too, not having much rest. But I finally made it in, got through dental school, and I think I was a great success for people in dentistry and for myself.
Jeff Nelson played at Iowa in the late 80s, early 90s for Hayden Fry. His son, Anthony, a tremendous player at Iowa, now the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You've got another son with Iowa football.
I do. I have Nathan Nelson, who is also now currently a grad assistant with under Coach Parker on the defense, working with the linebackers.
What was one or two unique caveats about playing for Hayden Fry, about wanting to excel for that staff?
Yeah, I mean, he was a tremendous person, very disciplined. So was always around in terms of just being very, with the military background, very maniacal in terms of details, and then had a tremendous coaching staff. And one thing that's odd is Kirk was there when I was there. He was the O-line coach. Him and Coach Mack were the D-line coach. So it's funny to know that Kirk was there when I was there, and now he's gone through and recruited, and now my one son's on his staff through that way. So it's been a crazy 30 years.
Coach Fry, the Marine, the ex-Marine, and great quarterback. So, and he talked about it in his book, The High Porch Picnic, a lot. As a quarterback, he pretty much knew what the defense was planning, and that also made him an offensive genius.
Yeah, absolutely. He was, again, the attention to the details, and both for offensively and defensively, he made sure that we were prepared for games and we were ready to play and be the tougher team on the field. So, absolutely.
Jeff, you were all Big Ten. Who else was on that defensive line? Remind us here, and what was unique about that D-line?
You know, we had great linebackers with Melvin Foster and John Derby. We had Jim Johnson, Matt Rulin, Jeff Keppel, Ron Gator, just a bunch of guys that, played hard. And with Coach Mack, you had to be tough. That was the first and foremost, be tough and get after it.
You better be. Talk about a fiery position coach.
Yeah, he's there. I don't think I've seen anything like him. He is by far the most tense coach I've ever seen.
Fred, I've had the pleasure of interviewing Don Nelson a couple times when he was an NBA coach. Loved him as a player, not only at college at Iowa, but all those world championships with the Celtics, and Hall of Fame coach. What are the one or two positives about Don Nelson that has made him so successful throughout his life?
Well, when Don was a player, Don was so strong. I mean, nobody realized it. There were times when as freshman and Nels was a senior when I was playing where they'd triple team him, and he'd get the ball underneath and take it up with three people holding him and still make it and get a three-point play. But Don initially wanted to come back and coach at Iowa, and Shorm was going to bring him back as a freshman coach, but Don was with the Lakers and got cut, and then he was going to become a basketball official in the NBA, and he decided, no, that's not going to happen because the Boston Celtics picked him up. Well, the rest is history. After the Celtics picked him up, and his numbers hanging up there, retired and that, and so now Nels really is a phenomenal, fantastic guy, though. Everybody, you think of somebody that's so famous, and he was a winningest coach, and all the other honors that went along with it. And he's still Don Nelson. And less than a year ago, he had those of us that were in school and were basketball while he was there out to his place in Hawaii. And we had a great reunion with a lot of the people. Nels took care of it, took us out to the golf course out there and around and that. And he hasn't changed. He's fantastic. He's a super person.
Super person indeed. Don Nelson, who lives on Maui, is right in the thick of things and taking care of the victims who lost everything in those wildfires. The Fight for Iowa podcast continues in a moment.
More of the Fight for Iowa podcast after this.
You don't have to go to the game to get a game program. You can download it now by visiting the game day page on HawkeyeSports.com. That's right, the game program is now digital and it's free. So check it out. Get the roster, the stats, and fascinating stories about today's matchup. Just go to HawkeyeSports.com and click on Game Day.
Hey, Hawkeyes fans, it's time to gear up for the season, so let's do it right. Jerseys, hats, hoodies, and more. Shields has everything you need to show your Iowa pride. Visit our fan shop online or in-store for the biggest and best brands in the game. You'll find the right gear to level up your team spirit with all the essentials for your pregame parking lot party. Shields, proud partner of Iowa Athletics and football fans everywhere.
Oh, you know that old injury of yours? The one in your knee or maybe back? Instead of going to the doctor and then doing physical therapy, why not start with therapy first? Athletico Physical Therapy is changing the whole healing process around. Their physical therapists will find the source of your pain and help fix it. Start with them and start living pain-free. Just like that.
It all starts with Athletico Physical Therapy. Schedule your free assessment at athletico.com. No prescription needed. Proud partner of the Iowa Hawkeyes.
Upgrade game day with Hawkeye Village. Get game tickets, pregame extravaganza, all you can eat, drinks, and more. Perfect for groups or families. Limited availability. Call 800-424-2957 or email group-sales@hawkeyesports.com. Join the Hawkeye excitement at Hawkeye Village.
Now back to the Fight for Iowa podcast. Here's the voice of the Hawkeyes, Gary Dolphin.
Back to our visit with former Iowa players Jeff Nelson and Fred Riddle, members of the Hawkeye Football Legacy Club. Riddle last played in 1963. That season ended prematurely when the final game with Notre Dame in Iowa City was canceled due to the assassination of President John F. Kennedy.
As you watch football and basketball today and how it has exploded in popularity, due in large part to television and these billion-dollar contracts, what strikes you about the games today versus when you played back in the 60s?
Well, football has become so much more complex and a year-round seasoning thing now. When I played ball at quarterback, I was about 210. At 210, the linemen at that time were 220. So I'm a 6'4", 210 quarterback thinking I'm pretty big, and I was. We had Larry Ferguson was on our team, and Fergie was from my high school where I went my first 2 years. So Fergie ran a 10.3-100 and held the school record. Well, now there are linemen that are 280 that run 10.3. So when people see some of the hits out there and they say, well, how can anybody, how'd they get hurt? How'd that happen? And I've always said the thing you need to do is to get on the sideline and get on the sideline at a high school game, and about once out of every 20 plays you hear a hit. You get on the field in college, and every play you hear about 5 hits on the same play, and all you need to do is just sit and listen. And when you get on the field on the pros, it's like everybody's banging each other, and so the strength and the speed and the all around having to be in shape, and now it's a miracle when they don't get hurt. And
Jeff, what's your son Anthony has played at this level in modern times and has done banging around. What's always impressed me is he could probably play either offensive line or defensive line like his dad, but he's turned out to be a solid player with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And how's he enjoying his NFL career?
He enjoys it. He loves it. He just got done with his rookie contract, so he was fortunate enough to re-sign for 2 more years with Tampa Bay. That's good. But no, it's that at that level, I have the ability. One of the things that's the most fun as a parent is during the training camp, you can go on the sidelines during camp and you can get close to these guys and see them in action. And like I always say is, hey, how are the rookie class this year? And he's like, Dad, they're all 6'6" and 6'7" and 6'8", and they all look like they're just amazing athletes getting off the bus. We'll have to wait till we get the pads on. He's like, they're all like that. You know what I mean? At that level,
they all look like Tristan Wirfs.
Yes, exactly. And that's, and then Tristan's there. We see him every time we're down there, and what a super guy. And him and Anthony continue to go against each other every day in practice, just like at Iowa. So, it's interesting. I know when Anthony was during the draft process, Coach Arians, Bruce Arians came up to Anthony before the draft when they drafted Tristan and said, "Hey, who's the best offensive lineman that you've gone against in the Big Ten?" And that would have been Anthony's second year. And he goes, "Tristan by far." And he's like, no, not on Iowa, in the Big Ten. He goes, "Coach, Tristan is the best offensive lineman I've ever gone against in the Big Ten or anywhere I've played." And then, of course, they draft Tristan, right? So, and it proves out that he's the best offensive lineman in the NFL now.
What lured a young guy from the Golden Gopher State to come to Iowa? What was the attraction?
You know what? It was Coach Mack, right? Just that intensity, the ability for him to come in and be a leader and want to be something you're a part of, and obviously with that ability to win, right? Back then, Golden Gophers were not good, and so that really wasn't an option for me. And Coach McCarney with Hayden's leadership, it was kind of a no-brain decision back then.
And Anthony would say the same things about Kirk Ferentz, I'm sure.
Absolutely. And then, Reese Morgan would have been his coach along with Coach Bell, right? So those guys were the key for him. And then Nathan, again, followed suit because wanted to be a part of that. And it was really enjoyable to have both kids on the team at the same time. So,
well, let's wrap with Fred played in the 60s. You played in the late 80s, early 90s. And here you are, proud members of the Legacy Club. What is it about this group? And we've all been members of great groups. What is it about this one that makes it so unique?
Well, I think it's just the family part of it, right? So we're all together. It doesn't matter what the era that you played in. It's about getting together. You have that common bond of Iowa football. And when you think at Iowa football, you talk about Hayden and you talk about Kirk. We're talking 50-some years of football and two coaches. That's unheard of in this era, right? With the I want to win instantly and self-gratification. So it's special, and I think having an organization like this that you can connect with players for professionally or just to be able to get together is really special.
Well said. Fred, what can you add to that old quarterback and star shooter?
Well, I think one of the main things that happened is when we all went through school, we understood that we were athletes, but we understood that we were expected to be students also. So we put the time in, and I think when you look around, everybody's been pretty successful, and that's what going to college is about. And they've been able to maintain a closeness of the different eras and the different players in that, as far as being around each other, seeing each other, and carrying on the tradition. And especially today now with what's happening with NIL and that, I think a lot of the commonness and the togetherness of what Iowa is all about. It's a small school, but it's a big school. It's a small city, but it's a big city. The people love you. The people in the state think the world of you, and it certainly helps you later on in life. It's not just your 4 years on the field or your 5 years on the field. It provides you the opportunity and people knowing who you are to help make you a success.
Many success stories among Iowa football kept alive by the Hawkeye Legacy Club. More on Fight for Iowa after this.
More of the Fight for Iowa podcast after this.
How would you like to be able to listen to the Hawkeye Radio Network while synced up to your TV in the comfort of your own home? Go to syncmygame.com to find out how. That's syncmygame.com.
To anyone passing through our state, fields and fields of corn might be what they see. But the people who call Iowa home know it's so much more. Corn is ethanol, a homegrown, renewable fuel. Corn is delicious pork, beef, poultry, and dairy. Corn is in 4,000 products we rely on every day. So yeah, our highway views are full of corn, and we're proud of it. Because corn grows Iowa. Show your support for Iowa corn farmers at iowacorn.org/fan of corn.
When you're out of town and want to keep up with the Hawkeyes and other college sports, be sure to download the new Varsity Network app. Available for both Apple and Android. Listen to college sports live with the Varsity Network app.
Now back to the Fight for Iowa podcast. here's the voice of the Hawkeyes, Gary Dolphin.
Thanks again to former Hawkeyes Dr. Fred Riddle and Jeff Nelson for appearing on this week's Fight for Iowa segment. Subscribe to the podcast and download new or past episodes on HawkeyeSports.com and apps like Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and Google. Enjoy the football season and go Hawks.
You've been listening to the Fight for Iowa podcast. Hawkeye fans, remember to hit the subscribe button on your favorite podcast app. Once you become a Fight for Iowa podcast subscriber, you'll automatically receive the latest episodes of the Fight for Iowa podcast, the Hawkeyes Voice podcast, Hawk Talk replays, exclusive game day content, and more. Until next time, on Iowa and go Hawks! The preceding has been a Learfield presentation on the Hawkeye Sports Network.